MPs revealed the torment these girls went through. A workers' MP, Topista Nantongo, was overcome by emotion. Even after the minister refused to apologize to the committee, lawmakers in the same committee think that the minister was so unfair to them. Now, the Permanent Secretary of Gender, Pas Bigirimana, has promised to follow up this matter with Interpol Uganda to track down the rest of the girls. Maurice Ochol, NTV at Parliament.
Kanungu district leaders have flatly rejected a Chankwanzi resolution endorsing President Museveni as the sole ruling party flag bearer for the 2016 polls. Speaking during a district development forum, Josephine Kasia, who is the LC5 chairperson, said the decision by the NRM House Caucus is not binding because it usurps the powers of the National Executive Council.
Emotions run high when politicians, religious and opinion leaders in Kanungu district converged at Ngota Resort Hotel to speak about the rift within the ruling party sparked by a power struggle. During the meeting, the leaders unanimously rejected an NRM caucus position endorsing President Museveni as the sole party flag bearer in 2016. They also accused the regime of witch-hunting Mbabazi, who hails from Kanungu, for seeking the presidency.
Kanungu is saying they should not even bother to come to explain because they don't agree with that. They said the constitution of Uganda is very clear, the party constitution is very clear, they cannot go against it.
Then you tell us to come and give us money, 5,000 to do what? Let our man be free, let him come as we always do, but not witch hunting our son.
Recently, MPs were given dollops of cash to popularize the Museveni 2016 bid across the countryside. The Kanungu district leadership want NRM MPs to apologize for undermining the principles of the NRM constitution.
Members here in this meeting need to understand it the more. Understand what exactly we are talking about and what the resolutions are talking about. Otherwise, I don't see any need of apologizing.
The district leadership, who had called a meeting to address development challenges in the district, said they are ready to support Mbabazi even if he seeks the presidency. The leaders promised to show the NRM a protest vote in 2016 unless the ailing infrastructure in the district is fixed.
They have resolved that come December 2014, if this road is not started on, the tarmac road is not started on, they will dissociate themselves from the ruling government.
This is one of the first few priority roads which were promised by government. Immediately NRM came into power, but the road was constructed up to Rukunjiri and the connection between Rukunjiri and Kanungu has delayed, and all of us are fed up as the people of Kanungu.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the NRM party in Mukono district, Haji Twahir Sebagala, has asked party supporters in the district not to take sides in the current conflict over the 2016 party flag bearer. He was addressing party supporters at Nama sub-county headquarters.
Just as in football, all we are interested in is a goal scorer.
Area Member of Parliament and Minister of State for Youth, Ronald Chibule, asked party members to rally behind President Museveni as the sole candidate since he is the only person with the potential and ability to rule the country.
And I have not seen any resistance apart from an individual who actually I'm not even sure whether he will vote. But truly we have reasons. The pressures of the region require a leader like President Museveni.
The views in Kanungu and Mukono portray the mixed reaction amongst NRM supporters across the countryside towards a campaign to sell the president ahead of the 2016 elections.
The Government Analytical Laboratory has revealed that it has a backlog of 8,000 forensic cases as a result of being ill-equipped. Officials told lawmakers on the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee that the situation is dire. They want the laboratory budget to be increased from 1.03 billion shillings to 7.3 billion to improve efficiency.
On the morning of the 14th December 2012, the news of the passing of Butaleja woman MP Serena Nevanda broke. The government immediately instituted an investigation into the cause of her death. Samples were taken from the deceased's boyfriend Adam Kalunji's home by the Government Analytical Laboratory. To date, there has not been concrete report from the investigations. Internal Affairs Minister Ronda Nyakarima says the case was poorly handled.
Remember, had issues of doing post-mortem or to take the samples to South Africa and all that. So we don't want such a thing. We want to have full capacity and independent capacity of the country to do that analytical work fully, and then it's credible enough to meeting international standards.
Like in many forensic inquiries at the laboratory, this one suffered at the hands of inexperienced personnel. The laboratory also did not have the necessary equipment.
We have got now a case backlog over 8,023 cases for DNA alone, let alone the 707 cases of toxicology. So we need to do this.
The government is now seeking these services abroad, a heavy cost that eventually trickled down to the already ill-funded directorate.
Most of these DNA cases are for criminal courts, Now, if we send these samples outside, we have to bring that person who performed that analysis from outside. We must pay his air ticket, we must pay his per diem, we must pay his insurance.
Officials from the Internal Affairs Committee appeared before the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee of Parliament today to defend their submitted budget for 2014-2015. In their submission, they requested an increment in the budget allocated to the government analytical laboratory from 1.03 billion to 7.3 billion.
We need the extra funding to make sure that we clear this backlog and we decongest the prisons. We help the DPP work.
They say this money will improve the quality of their largely investigative work, especially in sophisticated cases. The money will also allow for a national DNA bank that will be used for easy monitoring.
If somebody is a criminal, we get him, we profile the DNA, we keep it on the national DNA bank. Just in case he escaped, or he does the second case in another place, we can now compare with the DNA bank.
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
That brings us to the end of our morning bulletin. We now head over to the Serena rooftop with Brian, Simon and Joel for today's press review.
Is brought to you by Uganda Telecom. It's all about you.
Well, a very good morning to all of you watching us from a rainy Thursday morning here, coming to you from the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel. It's morning at NTV's press review, brought to you proudly by Uganda Telecom, with myself, Simon Kasiate, and the usual two suspects with whom I enjoy having a very early morning with, Brian and Joel. Good morning, folks, and how is the rain treating you?
And you sound like you've been...
What's that you're wearing, Brian, for example?
It's called... So last time when I was reading the red pepper, they were asking us to wear scarves for, you know, this season, and Kasiate. Since Kasiate has not criticized me yet, I think I'm doing the right thing. Since he writes that.
I'm just asking if a slight breeze in Kampala plummeting us to temperatures of about 20 degrees Celsius are going to subject you to wearing like an Eskimo. What would happen if you...
An Escom.
So what would happen if you're a news anchor in Helsinki in Finland? How would you be dressed up?
Then I'll
come in blankets. Huh?
Yes, yeah.
Well, the Daily Monitor this morning is not giving you some warming up news. It's quite gloomy in there with a headline saying that workers in some 36 districts in Uganda risk missing their April pay. We're talking about 6 days from now, where workers in 36 districts risk missing out on their pay. The reasons are elaborated in the Daily Monitor. Certainly it's not their fault, it's the fault with their accounting and payment system within government. And we can see here the Secretary of the Treasury giving some directives to chief administrative officers in the respective districts to pull up their socks, so else their workers there will not have their pay.
Submitting, apparently they need to submit details of the payroll of thousands of civil servants. I'm thinking, you know, there's things that I find a little bit difficult to understand. We tend to do things last minute. This is now, today is what? Today is 24th?
Yes.
And this is when we are scampering to see, okay, these guys are there, the payroll and that kind of thing. The other day when we were hosting Chogam, we were planting trees 1 week to the day. And this goes on.
And that's the argument we have always been making, that it seems that government of Uganda is increasingly becoming incapable of running even the most basic business activity, like paying their own workers. And then you ask yourself, if you are unable to pay your own workers, how then do you come and start clamoring that you're able to generate your own electricity and distribute it, for example? I mean, this is I always
do you have to use electricity always? I mean,
this is a subject I know that's closer to my heart. I mean, this is the argument I keep making because it's closer to my heart. But away from that, some good news, of course, coming to warm you up as we get into the weekend. We have a Congolese musician coming in to grace a charity event, and this is the story playing out on page 3 of the Daily Monitor, not anywhere in the entertainment. That tells you of the gravity of the issues for which he's coming to perform over charity, and this is brought to you by the Rotary Club.
Yes, I am, I'm part of the Rotary family. I've been a president before for Rotaract. Yes. And I said Rotary. I am moving on to Rotary, so it's good. But also, at one point, I thought to myself, who will be there for Kofi Olomide? But then the class that Rotary is obviously for senior people, and Kofi Olomide
is the songs that we used to dance to. Simanya, Bolingo,
yes. Well, and I know Kasiate will represent.
Well, without a doubt. Of course, I'm having an action-packed weekend starting on from today when I attend the celebrations to mark 20 years of freedom for South Africa, and there will be a wonderful performance by the Soweto String Quartet. I'm afraid, obviously, it's not a paid concert. It's on the invites only, and I hope that
I'm sure I will get a good word in, and the South African embassy will let us in.
Just be nice to the ambassador, and he might throw some tickets around.
I'll make my comments about that a bit later on in the show.
The Pakistanis that were arrested for gang raping a young lady, 23-year-old lady,
allegedly arrested.
Currently, the DPP has dropped these gang rape charges against these fellows.
And now I wait to see the cry and hue like we did when these 3 men were arrested, the demonstrations that took place outside their workplace, and all this media clamor by women and female rights activists that followed all this. I mean, it was all a lot of cry and hue, and the question is, so what? After which these charges have been dropped, can we now say that this lady was not gang raped? Or is it the usual slap on the wrist, as we've seen from the DPP's charges now being reduced to domestic violence and having sex with somebody against the order of nature?
I am not a lawyer, but I am trying to understand this case, and it's a bit confusing. I'm thinking this girl was actually raped, and we are saying, okay, now we're going to charge these fellows for domestic violence. I don't get it.
Well, there we have it, the usual story playing out in Ugandan media, where it starts off with a lot of buzz and it finally fizzles away as quietly, possibly, as you'd never expect. Let's recall that recently, that's on Friday, a little girl, primary 5 pupil, and her mother were detained for breaching the president's security and delivering to him a letter whose contents we are yet to know, but we can always guess it must have been a plea for help. These 2 ladies have been released by the police that held them in Barra since then.
That's you know what? That's very sad. If I'm the president, I deal with the security that let these people beat it. How can you arrest a girl like this and keep up? How many days has it been now?
Yeah, but of course they will say, Your Excellency, we're trying to make sure you are very safe.
Yeah, right. I handed the letter over. If I was to kill the president then, you'd have died already. So you are already incompetent at security.
What makes you think that the president's actions will always play out in the press? Perhaps the reason
because of course it would be nice to tell them, no, leave the young lady, let her come, and then back at State House. Okay.
Some heads will roll. Now, let's not forget that there's always been a lot of clamor and jostling for positions within the NRM, and we've seen it playing out between the Prime Minister, who is the Secretary General, and the President, who also doubles as the party chairperson. Now, there are youth allied to both gentlemen, and yesterday we saw some interesting skirmishes taking place at the party headquarters in Nakasero, and this reported here in the Daily Monitor on page 5. Get yourself a copy and get to feel what NRM youth were clashing over at the party headquarters yesterday.
And these clashes are not about to end. As money continues to be dished out the other day in Busoga, I'm told youth were very angry, saying, and we are going to see this again and again and again.
Well, skirmishes do continue, and in fact, relatedly to what George just said, Busoga legislators are clashing over the Museveni anti-poverty project. It's also here in the Daily Monitor now. Away from the youth, now we have legislators at that level of leadership clashing over, yes, you guessed right, it's cash, nothing else.
What would you expect? But you see, we've had many, anti-poverty campaigns in Busoga region. I'm not too sure it has helped that place become any better. They've time and again been called the headquarters of poverty.
Well, that's a story that can be replicated across the country. But let's look at, for example, the northeastern region of Karamoja. Since time immemorial, this is a place that has swallowed up close to $1 billion in development cooperation aid. And if I ask you, if you went to Karamoja now, what would there be to show of the amount of aid that has been, sunk in there? Perhaps maybe one or two funded projects like the Ateshiro Dam,
I think for me,
not so much
before we even dish out cash, we have to address issues of tradition and culture, because that is a major block to development. If someone still thinks in this time and age that they cannot use a toilet, how then are you going to guarantee their health? Regardless of how many hospitals, if a woman thinks that when they squat on a toilet seat, they are not going to give birth ever again. That's sad to deal with.
So it's something to do with the culture.
You have to address those things first before you dish out money.
I don't know perhaps what else. You've been talking about, Eastern Uganda, Soroti and the likes. There are stories that have been coming out of that place of late that have been stupefying. We have men giving away their daughters, for what? A sack of cassava. The other day, a shameless man gave away his
what's the difference? I see daughters here being given away for baskets of fruits.
I don't agree with that either, but you see, they are above 18. We're talking about an 8-year-old girl that was given away for how much? It was, I think, a rooster and 300,000 shillings. Yeah. A very shameless man.
A chairperson in Soroti, I had an opportunity to interact with this man, and he goes, if he learns that there's been a marriage like that, that has been arranged, he goes and makes sure you refund what you got, and the girl goes back to school.
Yeah, isn't that a bit too late or too late that you may find that this marriage has been consummated and the
of course it can't.
Because for this 8-year-old girl, her system was ruptured with an 8-year-old girl.
Well, there we have it. In the western region of Uganda, news coming in from Kanungu is that the NRM caucus has opposed the NRM resolution that came out over Chankwanzi. Of course, like they say, what do you expect of this is the place where the Prime Minister does come from.
Well, as we what do you expect? They need some money and they'll keep quiet, eh?
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up this press review this morning, we can take a look at what's happening in the inner passage of the Daily Monitor. We've got an interesting pull-out that's heart-to-heart for those of you who are searching for love. And of course, the next magazine is talking about very interesting happenings across the world. In sports, interesting stories, but key among them as we conclude. Remember the Ugandan boxing sensation Kasim Ouma? Yes, he is in the news once again. And guess what his crime is? For punching up somebody. Well, of course, that's his job. But this time around, he punched up somebody for making sexual advances at him. And we're not talking about a lady. We're talking about another man.
This man failed to knock out people in the ring. He's knocking them outside the ring.
I think he was thinking, well, I failed with Juliana. Now this dude is coming to waste my time.
No, but I'm not a boxer. I would knock you out too. If you come just gallivanting with your fingers around me, anyhow.
Talking about knockout, I guess it's time to knock out ourselves from this dice so that we can go in straight for the big story. We'll be having an interesting and in-depth discussion with the South African High Commission as the South African community in Uganda start, a series of activities to mark 20 years of freedom in their country. This press review obviously was brought to you by Uganda Telecom, for which we are eternally grateful. And yes, for your viewers, stay tuned. We're coming back right after this.
*100# select Chize and get the total amount you spend in a month refunded. This refund can be used for calls and SMSs to all networks for the next 30 days from Uganda's most affordable telecom service, Uganda Telecom. It's all about you.
Every idea we have begins with you. The way you connect.
Good morning.
How you browse. How you share. And how you interact with the world around you.
Your relationship with your God is the most important thing.
Have a company of people who have got a similar mindset.
How do you want people to think, feel, and act after your talk? In other words, what's your objective?
You inspire everything. Because in the end, innovation doesn't really matter unless it does something that really matters to you. And we are HTC.
ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli Lwakuna butereevu ku NTV akawungeezi.
Kampala has been voted in the past as one of the favorite cities for tourists, one of the most peaceful cities. That is something that is changing.
Kale Kaihura, the Inspector General of Police, and President Yoweri Museveni, their alliance, they can only crack down or stop individual strikes and individual demonstrations. But I don't think they can stop the growth of militancy.
No holds barred.
Besigye and Lukwago have particular grievances against the government, some legitimate, some misguided. What should the police do? Of course, the police has to intervene, A, to protect the power of President Yoweri Museveni and the NRM from disruption by Besigye and Lukwago, but B, also, never forget this, to protect those ordinary people whose property gets destroyed.
I want to ask that many think that they've actually been frustrated.
Opposition parties in Africa do not tend to be constructed around policy differences. FDC lacks a glue to hold its coalition of different power-hungry individuals together.
Incisive.
You see, the NRM is more divided internally than the FDC. The advantage with the NRM is it has political power.
Analytical.
I think that one of the best organized political parties in Uganda is the PPP, the People's Progressive Party with Dan Sali. This idea that everybody is telling around the world that Africans are poor and they cannot contribute to their own political and social emancipation is crap. In fact, I think that the opposition parties in Uganda have to win an election in an unfair and unleveled ground.
Newsnight with Andrew Mwenda.
You can bring everybody in parliament as long as they can wake up and vote for the NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am Muyai?
It's absolutely true. I admire the President Museveni.
Is the ICC a first code targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only the two individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji and Brian Mulondo.
A very good morning once again on this wonderful Thursday morning. Slightly overcast and of course rainy over Kampala where we're coming to you from. I do not know how it is where you are, wherever you're watching us. Well, keep it warm, I must say. This is the big story this wonderful Thursday morning. Now, on the 27th day of April in 1994, South Africa did hold their first democratic elections. You remember very well, and of course the story of South Africa and its quest for freedom is one that's been told over and over again, and therefore commemoration, especially as we get closer to the 27th day of April, are always in order. This time around is a commemoration like no other. We're talking about 2 decades of freedom for South Africa. Let's also not forget that South Africa and Uganda have held very close relations before and even after apartheid, but we're talking about a different relation in the different periods. You remember very well that Uganda also does pride itself in playing a bit of a pivotal role in the quest to have freedom, the freedom that they are celebrating 20 years down the road. Today we have the honor and privilege to have with us the South African High Commission to Uganda, His Excellency John Kwerani. Good morning and welcome to The Big Story.
Oh, good morning, sir. Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners.
20 years of freedom. What can someone, from where I sit, from where Ugandans are seated and watching you, what can they make of the 20 years of freedom that you celebrate this period in your history?
Well, the simple thing is to conceptualize the meaning of 20 years of freedom. You just have to look at me here in Kampala this year, in my position as representing the South African government in the Republic of Uganda. 20 years ago, this did not happen. You were black, you knew your place in society, which was out there behind the kitchen. That's it. Now,
you're in the kitchen?
More and more blacks are representing South Africa as ambassadors and high commissioners all across the world. You are having, this is a second thing to note about 20 years of freedom. We have an embassy here in Kampala. 20 years ago, no self-respecting nation wanted anything to do with apartheid South Africa. You never had such embassies here.
Matter of fact, in our passports 20 years ago, there was a huge stamp that read to all countries except South Africa.
Yeah.
Even our own governments didn't allow us to travel to South Africa. That clearly has since changed in the last 20 years. However, when we hear reports coming in from back home, and sorry for taking away this and maybe trying to stamp onto your parade, there are also a number of voices that are coming in from a critical perspective and saying, it's 20 years of freedom, yes, but it seems like it's 20 years of not equal development. That in fact, as you say, blacks have taken center stage in doing what they should otherwise have been doing, that they were unable to do 20 years ago. Some feel disenfranchised up to this point. Is that a voice of reason coming from home? Is that a voice of reality? Or is it the usual charlatans saying what they have to say simply to just capture some attention?
Well, there's got to be some truth in that. Let's just be honest. I'm not going to sit here pretending that all is well and okay in South Africa. It's not that hunky-dory. You must remember that we are talking about a system that had been in place for over 500 years, from colonialism right through the British occupation into apartheid. It was always a system of racist oppression. There never was a situation anywhere where you had Africans in government, Africans in control of anything. It was always Africans being the underdogs. So to really expect us to right overnight the wrongs of over 500 years in 2
decades,
yeah, 240 months is asking us too much. Yes, there are shortcomings, but the critical factor is that our government is working towards addressing those shortcomings. It's not as though they have been glossed over, no.
Well, we get reports coming in that indeed for a long time South Africa has been the biggest economy in Africa. Never mind recent figures that pitted Nigeria as now the #1 economy in Africa. But we're looking at South Africa because that's where we see the bulk of industry, the bulk of corporate governance, the bulk of everything. How much of that is the black community able to participate in, if we had to put on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is where you're coming from in apartheid South Africa, and 10 is the utopian ultimate control and self-determination? Where can we rate South Africa, South African black participation 20 years down the road?
Yeah, it's a bit of a loaded question, but I will hazard a guess and say black South Africa is probably participating at a level of 25 to 30%. It's not very high, as you can see, but we are getting there. If we could cover so much in 20 years, I guess that in the next 20 years it should have doubled that number or even exceeded it a bit.
Well, of course, we also know that, like you mentioned, 500 years of apartheid rule certainly pit two groups of people, in fact even a third one, against each other, and therefore the need for reconciliation, as we saw did take place, certainly had a bit of changing mindsets and allowing people to relate amicably. But again, just to ask you from where you sit, how much of this reconciliation is actually there, more than just what we read about in newspapers or what we see taunted or talked about on TV? How much reconciliation has been achieved between the oppressor of yesterday and the oppressee then?
You know, that's a very interesting question, And you will be quite surprised if I tell you that reconciliation has gone a long, long way towards healing the rift that was there between the oppressed and the oppressor. There's a lot. I mean, you go to our schools today, you will find black and white children in school playing together in the school playgrounds, etc. Watch the white people's biggest national game, sport, rugby. Yeah. Watch it today. Some of the leading players are black people.
Of course, we do all recall the 1995 World Cup rugby that was hosted and yes, eventually won by you in South Africa, and that epic moment when the late Madiba showed up wearing the Springboks jersey. That was certainly an epic moment. But going away from that, are you comfortably saying that this reconciliation has achieved to the greater extent that it was set out to achieve?
Yeah, I'm saying it is continuing to do that. Obviously, it's not yet there. A lot of things in South Africa are not yet at the peak, what you call the utopia level. They are not yet there, but we are still going there.
Your Excellency, we know and you will appreciate that many African countries around that time when you are wallowing, after going through their own quest for their own independence, they put their hands together and they try to play a serious role in ensuring that you get the liberation that you so much clamored for. Uganda is just one of such countries, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and the others. But on the other hand, we see that almost 20 years down the road, we get reports of some xenophobic attacks from fellow African black South Africans towards their other African neighbors who come in to look for opportunities that don't seem to elude them in their own countries. What can you say to those Ugandans or these other Africans other than South Africans who come to South Africa in search of greener pastures only to find a hostile South African local populace against them?
There's something to say before I answer your question. There's something to say about this. And it is simply that the system of racism in South Africa did not just mean white oppressing black. It had several facets that were interrelated and leading back to the oppression of blacks. And one of those facets was the system of divide and rule. You separated Africans in such a way that they started losing track of who the real enemy was. Then, even in South Africa itself, you had this myth created by the whites that Zulus and Xhosas hate each other. Wow. And it led to a situation in the 90s.
Yes, we saw the chief, the Inkatha Freedom Party, right, without the skirmishes and the like.
And they were claiming it's black on black violence. There was nothing like that. It was white stoking up the
fire so they can divide and rule the black.
That's right.
And so this has now played out in the fact that now other Africans are looked at by indigenous South Africans as enemies as well.
But not exactly that. Not exactly that. It was quite localized when it happened about 4 or 5 years ago. It was quite localized. It wasn't a general
trend across the country.
No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't that like.
And this has since been nipped in the bud, and sanity has since prevailed.
Yeah, absolutely. You have. You have people from outside Africa, outside South Africa, living amongst us, and there's no friction.
We have an interestingly huge Ugandan community in South Africa, and talking about which
I know that, brother. I know that. I was at a function, was it last year? At a function in Johannesburg. No, it was in Pretoria.
Yes.
They were electing Miss Uganda in South Africa.
Wow.
I was there. It was quite a grand affair. Very, very beautiful.
Huge population, very interesting characters, spanning different professions and the like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Your Excellency, looking at Uganda-South African relations, of course, now we see proper, with your presence here, a diplomatic mission, with the presence of a huge corporate presence of South African companies in Uganda, that clearly tells of an interesting relationship that's based on trade, is based on political cohesion. But what do you make of the relation of South Africa and Uganda at this point in time? How can you relate it? Of course, there are places where South Africa and other African countries are not really on very good talking terms, politically and even economically. But how would you rate Uganda-South African relations now?
I would rate them as excellent. The two presidents of our respective countries behave like brothers, and of course they are brothers. There's a warm cordiality between them, and I think in the space of the last 4 months since the beginning of the year, there have been exchanges of about 8 special envoys between South Africa and Uganda. Sometimes those guys would be crossing each other on the way, coming here.
What is this that these special envoys are discussing that maybe you need to share with us? Is there anything big coming on between Uganda and South Africa in terms of some kind of trade, or is it some kind of military intervention somewhere? Just paint a picture. What's all this heightened relation and interaction in the last 4 months?
You know, my brother, you'd want Minister Sam Kutesa to order me out of the country tomorrow.
No, I don't think he would. He will let you at least celebrate tonight.
Yeah, after that he will say, no, you are a diplomatic danger. You spill out state secrets.
I'll just push you on one more, maybe state secret, if I may call it that way. Of course, we have South African companies taking center stage in supermarkets, in electricity generation, in all sorts of things, car manufacturing and the like, with products here on the market. Recently, we did see the Ugandan Parliament raise some kind of questions and demanding for the termination of Eskom, which does generate over 95% of the power down in South Africa and now is one of the biggest power generators in Uganda. What do you make of that situation with regard to investor confidence in the investment regime of Uganda at this point, given that South Africa is one of the biggest investment countries that come to Uganda?
Well, with due respect, I will say that what is happening against Eskom in the Ugandan parliament is just grandstanding. Some are going to be very angry that I say so. But I have a feeling that what the parliamentarians want is to get at Umeme. Now, to disguise their intentions, Eskom, the innocent party, is just thrown in for convenience to scapegoat, so that eventually the electricity consumer in Uganda will not just say, no, these guys were gunning for Umeme.
So that this acts as a smoke screen. Of course, as always, I must declare my conflict of interest. As soon as this show ends, I begin my 8 to 5 work with Eskom Uganda. But that doesn't obviously stop me as a journalist to ask those critical questions on matters on which I have a conflict of interest. Your Excellency, as we conclude this, today you begin a series of activities to mark 20 years of freedom. And in fact, I know it on good information that tonight you start off with a grand, cocktail reception hosted somewhere in Uganda. You're hosting your friends, your comrades, you're hosting everybody that is anything to you down there. But from there, you will have a number of other series of activities to commemorate these 20 years. Could you please bring us to speed on what these activities are and to what extent Ugandans can join you in participation and celebration?
As a matter of fact, even tonight, there have been a number of Ugandans invited to celebrate our anniversary of freedom. But beyond that, we have a series of events planned for the rest of the year. and there we are involving every Ugandan. We are going to start off with a golf day. That golf day is going to invite even you, sir, just come with your golf bag. And
well, you have no idea how good and inverted commas I am at playing golf. Well, when I am on the greens, you better be out because you don't know where my swing will go.
No, then you are very welcome. Then you are very welcome. That's the sort of player we want.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. And then we'll have a consumer week. There's a particular week where we have been kindly granted space by Mr. Piet Kutsie.
At game?
Yeah, he's the managing director of Checkers. Yeah, they have given us space there. We are going to showcase all the South African products that
get consumed in Uganda.
Yeah. Every South African company is going to be there. It's going to be a fun day as well.
Wow.
We'll have
the usual braai, some music, of course.
That's right.
And a lot of merrymaking.
Good that you know about the braai. We're going to have, braai and beer and jumping castles for the children, all that sort of thing. It's going to be a great day.
Your Excellency, the final one on this one, sorry to cut you short here, is 20 years now, 20 years of good diplomatic relations with Uganda. What is the outlook? What are the strategic areas that South Africa is looking at back at home as drivers of economic growth to keep you as the economic powerhouse of Africa? But also, what are the big issues that you are looking at to continue being the vanguard of regional integration, regional peace in the areas, and especially the Great Lakes region where you have such a strong presence?
Yeah, the question is always one. And it is that we are determined to leave a very important footprint in the area of good neighborliness, so that the Great Lakes region should experience peace, know and experience peace. That's part of the African Union's mandate, that there shall be peace all across the continent. And where we can help with a little bit, we are willing to come in. Somalia, South Sudan,
very importantly,
DRC,
South Sudan, yes.
Yeah, and the Central African Republic.
Your last question, you happen to have, as South Africa, a very pivotal role you play in the African Union. The head of the African Union happens to be, a former high-ranking cabinet official from South Africa, and yet we continue to see a lot of mal-happenings with regard to the absence of security in some African countries. We see the intervention of the United Nations. We see the intervention of Western powers and all these hegemons coming around. You get a sense that the African Union is not so much the strong, robust union that it's supposed to be, as it was envisaged by those founding fathers of the African Union.
You are quite correct on that score. It's not yet as strong as we wished it to be, but it's really changing. I want to believe that under its current leadership, you are not going to have situations like you had a regime change with impunity in Libya.
Or you have something like a genocide that we did witness in neighboring Rwanda in 1994.
That's right.
I love the optimism, Your Excellency. Unfortunately, time, of course, is not an ally on our side for us to enjoy, and it's always a pleasure hosting such dignitaries on our show, and especially commemorating with them 20 years of freedom. Let's take a short break. When we return, it's Simon Says. A very good morning once again, and yes, you've heard him, His Excellency, the High Commissioner of South Africa to Uganda, John Kwelane, telling us in bits and pieces, but very consolidated message coming to us from him as South Africa looks at celebrating 20 years of freedom. Now, of course, we know that 20 years ago, the situation was extremely dire, and like I said at the beginning of this show, This South African story has been told over and over a time. Even for those children born after 1994, they do certainly know for sure what did happen and how much this country has changed. Of course, now we also know that there has been this whole brotherliness and comradeship attitude from African countries and their show of solidarity all through those dark ages when they were able to, until this point in time where they are relating with South Africa almost from a point of, look, you are now an independent country, you are enjoying freedom, but you stand at a position that is slightly better than us because your economy has moved steps higher, and together we can hold our hands and realize the African dream. The story of South Africa is one of hope, resilience, and of course a fight like no other, and this could be played out in everybody's life. Forget about a state's life. That you could come from points of bondage, points of being disenfranchised to the T, but resilience and keeping your hand on the pulse would one day obviously deliver to you that much desired breakage from the chains of bondage. We can only wish them a happy celebration and wish them many happy and freedom days, so to speak, in the centuries and eons to come. Have a wonderful morning. Wherever this day takes you, you our viewers, ensure that you relate amicably with all those that your life touches and those whose lives touch you. In other words, I'm saying let's all feel free and give freedom to others, just like the South Africans are celebrating 20 years down the road. Have a good morning.
Check it out. Uganda Telecom gives you a chance to be a millionaire. Your next phone call can turn you to a millionaire.
Answer calls on your mobile or landline, and one of them could make you a millionaire.
Just receive calls on your Uganda Telecom number. You could win up to 1 million shillings every day.
The more calls you receive, the higher chances of winning.
There will be a winner every hour, every day.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is just answer your phone.
If you call me now,
I can be a millionaire.
if I call you now,
You can be a millionaire. Answer the phone, just answer the phone.
Yeah.
Answer the phone, just answer the phone. Don't miss that call. Don't miss loads of cash from Uganda's most affordable telecom service.
Uganda Telecom. It's all about you.
What's that?
That document.
Oh, that. Just some business.
I came to apologize. I have no right to interfere in your lives.
I've eliminated the only evidence that links me to Ivan Chinawa's death.
But you didn't have to kill another person.
It's not like I've got anything to hide, Nene. Just go ahead.
Victoria, how is it like to work for Miles Vilagazi?
Blood seemed to matter not.
Blood?
Yeah, blood.
I'm responsible for your father's death.
Ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli lwakuna butereevu ku NTV akawungeezi.
Aro, give me 5 stress, 3 gonorrhea.
Kale muli wano, you think you've brought campasas. Omwana yenna asobola okugamba super deep. Si myaka gyaffe.
I'm like, I like my swag too. So what about it? Then she was like, I also like your accent. That village accent. Now.
Mwagala mchimbimbili wana kuza kene chili chianu chili okay wale tensanyu fu weneyo political tayakana nomuzanga nakajawa
kati nekambuuza mukalete why are you crying nekagamba abasajja engeri gye bafulumiza mu lukwago.
I think I'm Big Mitch. Larry Hoover. Put that in Kiprotich's accent.
I think I'm Big Mitch. Larry Hoover.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
I'm gonna blow your mind and I'm gonna twist your taste buds. The flavors are already coming together. I can feel them. Very lovely, very appetizing, very powerful. Remember, the way you see it, the way you like it, is the way you get it from my kitchen to your kitchen.
The average age of the entire national team is under 18.
Yeah.
And so
The primary role of Team Uganda is to remain Division 2.
Probably that's the only thing that can make one or two rugby fans smile, that the clubs are doing well.
The players haven't put on they haven't wore the game faces. They're not the animals we saw last season, because Ferguson had the same group of players and he did deliver the Holy Grail, which is the title.
Running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial *161# to get going again.
On the next episode of La Patrona.
Have you ever heard that words are deadlier than bullets are?
No, and I don't get it. What are you trying to say?
The microphone is yours, Mr. Mayor. I invite you to broadcast to all the people of San Pedro del Oro everything you just said.
If you only knew what I was going through now. Everything's falling apart around me right now. But I'm still here. Still standing on my feet. For my daughter and for Valentina. Of course you understand perfectly. When my daughter gets better, and Valentina is no longer legally a minor, I'm getting out of this damn town.
La Patrona.
At Orange, we know that running out of airtime can happen to anyone. That's why we bring you Wetase. Simply dial *161# to get going again. Convenience changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
A very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for staying with us. And it's about 2 minutes after 8 o'clock. We're still at the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel. And across the city, it's raining and flooding. And yeah, you can see some, some places might still have fog. But people are up and running and going to work. And if you're joining us on your telly in the office or at home or streaming online, it's www.youtube.com/NTV Uganda/live. Thank you so much for staying with us on this day when South Africa celebrates 20 years of peace and democracy. And of course, for us here at Morning at NTV, we value such things. And so Simon Kasiate on the big story hosted the ambassador John Kwelani, and they were talking about some of the transformation that South Africa has gone through since the days of the apartheid. And on our Twitter handle at Morning at NTV, where by the way you can go there and tell us what you think. Ankole Citizen Forum, that is at Worksoff, says, just watching, South Africans really went through a lot, but that democracy is getting offline. I don't know what that means, but yeah, really. They've had 2 presidents that were transitioning peacefully, so I don't know what you mean
really. And Elsie Moore saying, I congratulate South Africa upon the 20 years of freedom. We are all African. And at Ego Morris saying, at Kasete seems a little under the weather today. Must be very chilly out there. Yes, we're at the highest point here at Serena, so it's really chilly. At PK Hill, nice to hear from you. I was saying, hope you have your winter clothes on. Morning at NTV. Yes, I did. I had a scarf earlier. I should probably bring it back because it's starting to drizzle again. At Ivan, thank you so much for watching. At Ivani Sevic David saying, we are also ready for you on this cold morning. Some of you answering the question of the day. Head over to our Twitter handle at Morning at NTV. Follow us there and tell us how you want this show, to be better for you. We'll definitely package it in the places where you want us to improve. Also later in the show, Everyday Life and Sport. We'll be talking some of the results from the Champions League match last night. But for now, Mabel is here with your birthday wishes and your comments on Facebook. Stay with us.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you if today is your birthday. We are saying happy birthday to Martin Hope, a student at Uganda Christian University, and to our very own Robin Kisti. Happy birthday to you too. Wherever you are chilling, I hope you are well. And Musa Semakula, who studied at Makerere University, we wish you to happy birthday, and may you all continue to blossom and in your life. We are also saying happy birthday to Barbara Streisand. Lady turns 72. I don't know if you knew she's not only a singer and an actress, but she's a producer, director, author, and a songwriter as well. Her strength really amazes me. At 72, she's still going strong, having won 2 Oscars and 8 Grammys, one of the few artists to win in both categories. And on to some of your messages this morning. We have Stephen Sanyu. This is regarding the news. He says, good morning guys, talk about the minister who does not know we have sisters in Iraq. And Mikey says, I have just watched Honorable Rukutana failing to apologize to Ugandans on the harm brought to the girls in Iraq because he's a shareholder in the company. That is a big shame. And we have Malele Collins saying, we love you NTV. As ardent sports fans, we kindly request you to relay some live soccer to us, and if possible the prestigious FIFA World Cup. Well, I'm sure our producer is listening. Maybe if a game is played in the morning, we will be able to do something about that. And moving on to some other messages regarding the big story where Simon hosted the High Commissioner of South Africa. We have Rob Love Okelo saying, I believe in Uganda, we lack leaders, we only have rulers. Dan Tumwesijide is saying, it would be great for me to see a black South African becoming an army commander police chief. We also have Fred Wakida saying, praise God for the fact that South Africa is celebrating her independence, because indeed it has been a pillar for African democracy. We now return to Brian for today's HTC Moment.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Now you're handing. Very good morning. Thank you so much for staying there. Well, my tea is becoming more. A lot more and more. I don't know what Irene did. But could it be this drizzle? Yeah, but the good thing is not black tea. You see, with black tea, each time I'm taking black tea, I usually see a person inside. That is why I have issues with it. Well, HTC definitely powers everyday life and is quietly brilliant. And yesterday we drew 2 people that won. They were called, and they will be heading over to the HTC hub to pick up their phones. We'll be coming up with more questions on Monday for you to win the HTC phone. But please head over to the HTC hub and grab any of the models there. The HTC Desire 300, 500, 600, the HTC One Max, the HTC One Gold. The M8 is what I'm holding. It sounds like a gun, eh? M what? M8. M8 is M16, M Simanya because man, yeah, but this is the latest that HTC has, and you can get any of those models. Now, this morning on Everyday Life, we are going to look at the life of children who have been raised in families with more than one mother, or half sisters, half brothers. In this generation, most of us have grown up in families like those. We look at some of the challenges of growing up in such families, but as this generation, what can we do to change that moving forward? Stay with me. I'll be back with Joel on Everyday Life. Good morning.
Everyday Life is brought to you by...
And we are HTC.
This morning, we've had the stories of children who are burnt, who are killed, who are, starved in homes where they were growing up with their half-brothers or half-sisters. And joining me today is our very own Joel Senyonyi. Good morning, Joel. You are steady? I'm an unsteady man. You have a story that is kind of related to this. You mind telling us that story?
Step-brothers, half-brothers, the two are actually different. Many times we misconstrue them to mean one and the same thing. A half-brother or half-sister, you share one of the parents. If, say, my father, for example, had children with other ladies besides my mother, those are my half-brothers and half-sister for that matter, because we share a parent, we share a father.
Right.
My mother had something similar, those would still be half. And then the steps, you do not, there's no blood relationship.
Really?
With a step-brother or a step-sister, let's imagine my father marries another lady, and that lady already has a child with another man. That is my step-brother or my step-sister. There's no blood relationship between me and that person. That is step.
Really?
Yes, please.
Hey, that's some education this morning.
Yeah, and
what's your story then?
My story, I do have half-brothers. I have a half-sister. And I don't have the statistics, but I'll tell you, for many people of our generation, you try and ask around your friends, you'll find that majority of them, they have either a half-brother or half-sister or a step, especially. You can even do it after he asked the cameraman, and so you realize that for many a person, that happens to be the case. And I'll tell you, there's been not so good ramifications to that. My father, for example, was a stay-away father. Why? Because, of course, now he had to go and take care of these other places.
Yeah.
Etc., etc. So you grow up in such a way that there's insufficiency of attention from, for the father in this particular case. There's insufficiency of funds, because if there's all these children all over the place, it doesn't matter how much this person is earning. You've got to take care of all these other children, which is very unfortunate. Something that needs to change, and I think our generation should. I was talking to a cousin of mine the other day and telling them, if you to see our parents and the way they did things, they've done a good job, raised us up and so on. But for many of them, especially our fathers, we do have half brothers, half sisters, and so on. Yes, it has happened. It is we appreciate them as a part of us and so on. But it's something we need to change. We need to change that, so that there are less and less of dysfunction.
Apart from the financial, problems that parents go through, of course you have to divide the money. You have to, sometimes I think they call it the opportunity cost, where you have to say, Joel said you need this. Last year you went to school.
This one son.
Okay, and we take James. Apart from those challenges, what other things do children go through that grow up with half brothers? And we are looking at families that are, in a bad situation, because there are families that, yes, the half brother and half sister are there, but things are fine. The father can take care of everyone. Yeah, such families are there. But for families that do not have, say, enough, what challenges do they go through?
Yeah, you talk about those that say we've got enough. Many times it's really not just about the money, that I've got the money to take care of these children. We've got many absentee fathers, because he's got to be in the other home, then next week the other one, and that kind of thing. His family floating, right, as it were. So the children are deprived of attention. I'll tell you what, people keep talking about quality time and that kind of thing, but I can spend 30 quality minutes with my child. My friend, children do not desire quality time. They need quantity, irrespective of how you look at it. So for quality is good, but quantity. Let's say I'll spend 30 minutes, but I'll make it quality. My friend, they need you there.
What is the definition of quality, I guess?
quality is what you do is embedded in, okay, we are spending time together, what are we doing in this time? You know, we are talking, you're not on your iPad or your HTC and that kind of thing. We are jailing properly. That's what people get to see as quality. But you see, quantity. You might be with a child playing all over the place. Not even be doing nothing, but they need you, you know, to be there for them. And unfortunately, that gets to happen to be the case. But there can also be squabbles, yeah. Thank God the way we did grow up, there was not much of, brothers and that kind of thing. And there's all this quibbling about, petty issues. My mother, and to this day, I appreciate this lady. There's a time I was a little disappointed. When I was younger, you know, I saw the way she was treating my half brothers and so on. I was a little bit disturbed. I was thinking, but you woman, don't you know that these are not your children? You know, of course I was young and seeing things differently. Yeah. She tried her best, you know, to see that we are all children. She, you know, takes good care of us all through. But it was a very hard nut to crack. And I'll tell you, there are others that probably were not as fortunate. They are in this house together. You know, all the ladies might not be in that house, but the children, you find they're fighting again and again because they know they do not share a parent.
Who then do you blame? Is it the failure of children to understand that, you know, man, Tituli Day, like Rionga says, Tituli Day, our parents have messed up. We need to understand and welcome these new people in our families. Or the failure of parents to communicate to their children that the guy, life happens. Get with the program.
Move on with it.
Yes.
Look, I think the owners for starters is entirely on the parents, because these are children, these are young kids, you know. They've got to be helped to understand. For starters, it's not their fault. And by the way, no child should ever find themselves in a situation where they think, okay, now you see, I do not belong to the marital lady, and so they begin to feel guilty. For goodness sake, as a child, it's not your problem. You did not sign up. You did not apply anywhere. Right. So, you know, to be born out of wedlock or whatever the case might be. So the onus is entirely on the parents. And unfortunately, if you look around, it is primarily the fathers, the men, you know, that are guilty of this. Have a child here, have a child there, and so on. Look, I am not perfect in any way. I cannot sit here and begin admonishing them and saying, okay, now you're going to hell or whatever the case might be. We all do make mistakes. But can you begin to style up? Because you see, there have been serious ramifications. So if you look at children that have grown up in these, what we call dysfunctional homes. Because if it is not functional, where there is a father, there is a mother, the children are therein, were taken care of, and so on. Once that order is distorted, that's where we get to hear of dysfunctional families. And for many people that grow up in dysfunctional families, it affects them. You know, even as they grow up, the kind of lives they lead, and so on. Many of the vices that we have today, it's because we saw them in these dysfunctional homes. Many of the people that you will find either they cheat on their wives, it's because they saw their father do it, and they're not doing it because they want to. But you see, habits are more caught than learned. Yes. If you see because you see many times parents, you know, they preach water and drink wine. I tell you, children are going to do what they see you do, because that is the way they've been brought up, that is what they see you do. Somehow it becomes a part of them. So knowingly, but many times unknowingly, they end up doing the same thing. So you find they're all over the place. Why? That is what they saw. They didn't know any better.
I like what you've said. You know, I'm doing a devotion called Elijah's House, and one of the things that they talk about is bitter roots, and how your childhood kind of shapes,
does, without a doubt,
what you, and it's natural. You do it not because you're planning to be like your father or your mother, but it's something that you've seen, you know, you've been seeing it while you're growing up, and so you're like, this is how things are supposed to be.
And even those that swear and say, I swear I'm not going to be like my father, before you know it, you slowly but surely tend to that side. Unknowingly, and many times without you wanting to, but because habits are more caught than learned, somehow that is the way you've seen things happening. I mean, you see many men that today batter their wives because they see their father do it, you know, so they don't want to divide themselves doing it because that is what they saw growing up, so it has become a part of them. However, there is hope. There is hope.
Let's start from there. First, what is the role of children in this?
The role of children, of course, as you grow up, you realize that as children, you should work together, and you find that for many of these ladies, you know, this mother of these children and this other mother, many times they do not cooperate, they do not talk, and that kind of thing. As children, you need to transcend that. You need to do everything within your power, especially as you begin to grow up. You realize, okay, our parents might not talk, they had issues, my mother is probably angry with the other woman because she stole her husband, and that kind of thing. There's many, you know, children that find themselves in that situation. But you see, as children, you need each other, you know. The parents, yes, they made their mistakes, but here you found yourselves, you did not apply, like we said earlier on, to become a part of this. So you should begin to jail, because you will need each other. You might begin pettifogging over stuff like, you see now, property and so on, how they share it. that's another challenge that comes up along the way, you know, which needn't be the case. But you need to do everything you can to gel together. You will need this person sometimes to come. They will need you.
And I like that because I you know, my mother grew up, I think, in the same circumstances, but I see the way she deals with her sisters and her sisters. And there's always at the end this huge party at the end of the year where
you don't even realize they are half or same.
I never realized that until I think I was in S4, because I always thought it was, you know, and for them, well, their father kind of was wise enough to bring the kids early. I tell them, okay, this one is your mother, but this one is not your mother, but you can call her mother.
You should actually probably hear your mother's story, and you see them now, you know, working together. They seem to have gelled. I have to believe it has taken work, a lot of work to realize that, you know what, okay, we've got to work to make it this.
But the children at that level, Joel, what do they do when they realize, you know, they have all these fights? Obviously, sometimes some of them have the inability to understand that it's important for us to deal now than later.
And I'll tell you, children begin to realize this when they see their parents treat them that way. If there are these children in a home and they probably belong to two different mothers, the same mother, but they belong to two different mothers and there's only one mother in the home, when children begin to see this lady treat her children, certain children a certain way, and then treating other children another different way, then slowly but surely they begin to piece things up together and realize, okay, why does she treat us this way? Why does she give them better food than she does? Why do they sit at the dining table and for us we're told to go and eat in the bedroom or in the kitchen? And they begin to take note of that. Eventually it begins to register that, something clicks here. And they begin to do a bit of research. Then eventually they discover that, okay, she is actually not our mother. And now when they realize that, when they are treated that way, they eventually now find a way of, you know, getting back at the children, because they can't get back at this lady because she's the mother, she's the Ashley and so on. When she is away, they'll begin to bounce on this one, especially if they are younger. Many times it happens that way at the younger ones. I don't know why, you know. They'll begin to gang up against this one, you know. So you get to realize that the ripple effect actually is, you know, stems from the parents, the way they operate, the way they do things. If they get these children together, help them realize, they need to tell them, by the way, these children should not discover these things on their own, that, now I'm not, you know, her child and that kind of thing. No, they should sit them down, let them understand it, but help them realize that, you know what, you might not belong to me, assuming I'm the mother, but I'm going to treat you as my children, I'm going to raise you up the same way. You realize that really will these children fight. They do not have any reason.
Where does the inability of, say, the second wife, and it's usually, you know, problematic. Of course, the first wife comes in and things are good, boom, the man brings two other kids, and the woman gets out of order. She obviously may not have where to go, and she needs to get the family, her children together, and then, yes, life has happened. For lack of a better word, you are there. You know, I have seen some men who I think it's very unfortunate. There are men who they married this lady, been with her for years, raised children up to a certain level. Then this guy sees a campus with a certain figure, is it 8 or 9, whatever the case might be. And then pounces on this girl and promises, I'm going to marry you, and the girl is like, how about your wife? No, that one I'll just throw her out of the house. I'm going to leave my wife. Some morons now. I don't like abusing people, but a man who will go throughout his wife and the children because he's gotten this latest device, beyond like device. I think I like that. It's very unfortunate. These guys need to style up. And what do you expect? You know, how do you expect now the children are going to style with this new latest attainment of yours, and the children will, how do you expect that they will, you know, jail and like each other? How do you think the other children of the lady that you have thrown out, the lady that you married, are going to treat these children? It stems from the parents. Of course, we need to become responsible children as we grow up, irrespective of what our parents did. Right. If we realize, okay, now these people are not going to get together anyway, we should begin working at it. And I do talk with my half brothers. Once in a while there might be an issue or two, but we realize that, you know what, we did not apply for this to happen. Yeah? So we've got to make life happen for each other in many ways, help each other out in whichever ways we can. Because whether it is now or later on, I will need them, they will need me. So we've got to work out this relationship. Right. If you're just joining us, we are talking, you know, growing up with half brothers and half sisters. If you are going through that, and probably while growing up it was hard for you to, you know, relate with these people. This this morning, Joel Senyonyi, who is representing many of us really, who have grown up, very many who have grown up with half brothers and half sisters. Sometimes I do MC weddings, and I always tell people, you know what, it is your responsibility to change this generation. But I like what you said also, that sometimes you don't want to repeat the mistakes that your parents did. And as a man, when you're getting married, you're like, God, help me, I will never be like my father. You go and if you're a believer, you go and break the altars of adultery and all this stuff. And I think I have an uncle who calls it due diligence. You go and do that and break all those spirits, the anointing oil and everything. 2 months later, you're like your father. And you think it's a good thing to do. Pray, use the anointing oil, etc., etc. But you see, prayer is not getting God to run the errands. Prayer is getting you ready to do God's will. At the end of the prayer, at the end of the thundering, the laying on of hands, you have got to work at it. You have to work. It should not be out of bitterness and out of anger. Many times that is why we say, I'm not going to be like my father and that kind of thing, out of anger. Let me tell you, anger drives us to do much of the time things we don't want to do, you know. Recognize that your parents made mistakes. Yeah, my father is not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He was an absentee father, he was a father, you know. But he did the very best that he could. I would want to blame him, but I forgave him, and that is in the past. I realized that I've got to cut out my life for me, and purposefully so. Realizing that, you know what, these things can catch up with me as well. I could end up becoming adulterous. Some people like to think of it as a gene or as a spirit that follows you. How you look at it. No, hereditary. It's not even how you look at it. The fact that you grew up that way, chances are higher for me, who grew up this way, than for somebody who grew up with one mother, one father, to end up, with those tendencies. So I've got to slowly but surely realize this is a weakness that is in my lineage, my family for that matter. I need help. I need help. We should look for help. It's not enough to stay on your own and say, I will not do it, Look to people who have been able to do it. Ask them how they managed to. Because like we're saying, you and our generation needs to change, because I don't have the statistics, but I tell you, perhaps about 80% of our generation, you find each person you talk to either has a half-brother or half-sister or a step. For most of them. Something that I think needs to change. We need to change this, So let's get as much help as we can. There are people that have managed to do this. They've been married for all these years, same wife, and and raise their children. How have they done it? Let's hear their stories. I was going to ask you their networks so that I'm happy so that they don't repeat those mistakes. I probably talked about this earlier, but quickly wrapping this up. One, how can parents fix this? How can parents fix it? I mean like our parents? Yes, our parents. But even parents now, even if they're in our generation who have already gotten children out of wedlock, and they don't know even how to tell their partners or introduce the children back into the family. Because I know a person like that who has 2 children out of the wedlock, the wife doesn't know, and you're thinking, dude, you've been married for less than 5 years. Probably had the first child before getting married. So how do you even correct that? And I'm sure that's very unfortunate that even for our age, you begin to slowly but surely see as, having a chat with a guy the other day who was 2 wives. That's me, boys, what's up with you? He said, if you have 1 wife, she fights with you. When you have 2 wives, they fight for you. I said, so that's right. I'm not married, but I like to think that marriage, but especially all of life, because I may not be married, but I can go around and start children, all of life takes work, man. A lot of work. It is a lot easier to do evil. That is why when you give back to your child, bless, for example, you're not going to teach him any bad manners. You're going to be ironic. Other kids that you not taught him that, because it is inherent and natural. That's how we are wired to do evil. But you good. Okay, other kids is not evil. Don't it's not evil, but I will correct that. Probably, right now, if I can trust them, in the future, I'll probably use that. That's your son, of course, But the point here is that it is a lot easier to do evil. Doing good takes a lot of work. And that what work should do, like I was saying, we need to get help, Probably should read some good self-help books, people that have written their stories that eventually had their lives get shattered. And so you're thinking, okay, this person went through this, I should do better. But it's
miles away from this place. There are people within us. In your family, there's probably that one uncle or that cousin, your mother, that seems to have gotten it very nicely put together. Got his wife, cheated on her, that kind of thing. Have a chat with them. Hear their story. They'll tell you it's not been easy, but you can pick a leaf for probably the whole tree. For some, you might need to pick the whole forest. Right. Learn how they have done it. And I think we need to do that. We need purpose. You know what? Things have got to get better. Let me tell you, if we sort out the issue of family challenges, Uganda will get better. Many of the predicaments that the country do grapple with are many times tethered to families. When families are torn apart, nations are torn apart. So it can begin to slowly but surely fix the issue of the family. And it shouldn't be that generation. You might say, well, our parents, they didn't get it right. They say they are parents when they make mistakes, by the way, you can see them and hear them outside. It makes sense. It does make sense. So it should start with that. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of hard work. You are married around, believing that many times you look at another lady and you're thinking, damn. There you are, and you're thinking, and wonderful name. Well, for others, you know that people look at them, they fear and wonder. But look, we have got to purpose. We have got to purpose to do hard work and realize that things can get better. We should get better. George, all the pleasure. Thank you so much for, coming. Thank you. The rest of your page is open morning at NTV. Tell us your story and let us try and make this generation better. Yes, mistakes have been done, but we can correct them. When I come back, Brian and I, that's weird. Tuka and I, that's better. We'll be talking sports. Stay with us. Good morning.
Everyday Life was brought to you by
We are HTC. Every idea we have begins with you. The way you connect. How you browse. How you share. And how you interact with the world around you. How do you want people to think, feel, and act outside the home? In other words, what's your objective? You inspire everything. Because in the end, innovation doesn't really matter unless it does something that really matters to you. And we are HTC. I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to push you to this spot. Remember, when you see it, the way you like it, is the way you get it from my kitchen to your kitchen.
Every time I find a struggle with one person to another against his heart,
Mwalimu yetoro waleta sewe wakapokeza. Na nzekoza ni mumuti wanga na nzokeza. The irony I know, this is love music, love to sing. I've never seen her if it's possible. The days of dedicated slaves following its abolition in the 1800s.
They tied the ladies. That's when I said getting off.
Everybody has a story, but yours will only become our story when we share.
For example,
deep action. We created it to give the world 3 times fresher breath and eliminate up to 99% of germs. Maybe we went too far. There's an outbreak of freshness. Three times fresher breath.
Running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial star 161 hash to get going again.
On the next episode of
How is trying to close them down and consider the distance and the range.
Running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial star 161 hash to get going again.
A very good morning. Thank you so much for taking that approximately 20 minutes on to 9 o'clock. This morning I'm getting with the Brian. Morning, man. Cool, man. The deputy. No, that's all. It's just the guys you get to know about. Yeah, before, I mean, you are like in a bar. In a bar, you know, you just start on like that. Here are different. They're saying the other side. So they know about the potential in the CEO. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It's one of the talking point and we'll start with Bradley. You got a franchise, the human story, and the Victoria Protection. I believe they are happy man quest. And this is a different approach from these guys. Why is it change? Yeah, I think they are looking at the future now, given how things have been banned. First of all, this is a bamboo super series. Yes. No, you're going to see much over one piece. I mean, it's been about Kenya. Kenya also. But hopefully this time on they can have a chance. But the approach that we talk about now is that to start with, when you look at those squads for Hima, Wenzori and Victoria Protectors, you would clearly see that there's a lot of young talent in there. And the difference in the other editions, you've been seeing more of the experience, the more the usual players you see in their respective clubs, big clubs, candidate. But this time around, they've taken a different approach. I think if you look at it in the squad, of course, they're going to be 2023, which will be the final. I think it will be the goal Ireland will be announced today, and then hopefully they go back to that today. But if you look at those things, for example, like the Himalaya Glory, apart from 1 or 2, I think big names in Timothy Mudora, I think Simon Wakabi, and then for Victoria Capital, probably Dennis Moro and Faizo Gamahia, most of them are youthful players. And why have they done this? Because they realize the Kenyans would come into the Bambari Super Series and will give lots of young talent a chance to try out something here. And this is one of the reasons. But also the other reason is Uganda experimented for acute engagement in June because they dropped out from the Confederation of African Rugby, Tier 1A. Now they're in Tier 1B. So they've got to play qualifiers, if you want to call them so, to get back to Tier 1A. So I think it will not be Senegal, Tunisia, and I think that's very cost India, but the teams are not yet out. The finalists of the teams that are not out. Of these two, who do you think should be, for lack of better words, more competitive in your series? Because the other issue, I think, we were seeing 2 young coaches. First made it coaching debut. In the Protector Super Series, I've just ended. His team actually won the Crocs, beating up on the Protectors, which was coached by Robert Seguya. Who painted exactly. Now it's going on actually. The same coaches have been given the team. Victoria Protectors, who will be coached by Robert Seguya, and Darren Mosoko. Who seems like, I think, is closing in and probably becoming the future coach, is one of the greatest Ugandan rugby players. So I think it's now closing in. But if you look at both teams, I think, I'd like to think still, given the experience of Robert Seguya, maybe he could have 1 or 2 things to say. Because I think it's not his first time to be involved in the real coaching that he's doing right now. Alan Musoke, this is probably unknown territory. Forget about the Bambari Super Series, Protector Super Series. This is the Bambari Super Series. This is serious business. They come against Super Power of Kenya, and I think Victoria Protectors will be playing against Chui on Saturday. I think the games kick off 2:30 and the other one 4 p.m. So I like to go with the experience of Robert Seguya, and maybe he could have 1 or 2 things to say. I did better than Alan Mosoko. You did the last time, I need to be standing there in the Bambari Super Series. Not that the player against me, but also have a better performance. Awesome. Why we wish them all the luck, because NTV is partly associated with rugby in this country, and big time because I know it's quite rough and roll. With Robert Madoy, he's always on, so you can pure rugby. Only rugby, and I'm sure guys from Buddha and Smart. But they've gone down, I mean, the best school now playing rugby in the country at the moment, the coach is Hannah. Wow. So we produced so many good rugby players, a couple of the last few years. Where they came from. Yeah, I know. I know it's been about, and people have to just do such smart and what, but it's about one. Much as they lost, they go and smart government and other things. Also, all about the Elite and Kuba were in action last night. Yeah. Do you think any of these would make it in the top 10? We thought they would, because prior to last night's game, if Ndeji and Kuba both had won, they would be playing for classification games of positions 9 to 12. Kuba yesterday were beaten by 3 sets to 0 by APR and Rwanda. That means they can only finish between 13 and 16. So they are going to play for those classification games. Ndeji did a good job, having been the best team in the country. No wonder they actually managed to beat up on, I think, the judge called of Algeria or Tunisia. So they will be playing the classification game to finish either between actually 9 and 12. So they managed to win this. So Ndeji probably will most likely will be the team to finish in the top 10. In the NBA, there are no players this morning. I started the tape this morning. And when it started raining, I'm like, I have to put it again to go to work. No, when they start, it's almost non-stop. So there were a couple of games this morning, game 2 of the other games, Portland Trailblazers up against Houston. I think you'll have to think this is a surprise. So many people going into this series, Houston were the favorites. Much as they didn't necessarily rule out Portland Trailblazers. And this morning, I'll tell you that the Portland Trailblazers actually took a 2-0 lead on the Houston Rockets. What a season, and what a playoff series. Lamar so deserved it. First game scored 46 points in rebounds. This morning scored 43 points. Wow. The first player to score 40 plus points in 2 consecutive games in the playoffs since LeBron James did that in 2009. Big effort from him, and they've got Damian Lillard also doing himself good. So it looks like it's this close to being over for the Eastern Conference. The Miami were expected to be Charlotte Bobcats. They did it again this morning, 101-97. LeBron James, I think, finished with 32 points. Chris Bosh with 20 points. Yeah, that's what so much his lifestyle. You tell me 20 points, 25 points, 30 points.
I did it, you know.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I don't know, Lamar is fouled out in game 1. And when he was going up, he told Damian Lillard, take it on.
Yeah.
You know they have a friend, they use that, take it on.
Yeah.
For the Dallas Mavericks, they tied the series in 1-1. They beat up on the San Antonio Spurs. I think it was 113, 105 or 98. I don't know the exact score, but the Dallas Mavericks tie up the series now. It's 1-0.
Right. Yeah. Well, I obviously woke up at the wrong time, so I shouldn't be able to catch it. Yeah. Well, Chelsea, they are it again. Yeah. There's Jose Mourinho, who, as usual, Ramirez, there's Rui Faria, all charges. What are the charges about?
Yeah, I mean, if you remember the Sunderland game, Jose Mourinho lost his first league game as a Chelsea manager at Stamford Bridge for the first time in 77 games. Sunderland beat them 2-1 last weekend. And you would understand why the charge is now coming. After the game, Mourinho went to the press conference sarcastically.
Yeah.
Said, the referee, I personally want to thank my players for doing what they could and what they couldn't. And then I would like to send Sunderland because they won. No credit to Sunderland meanwhile. Because they won, but just because they won, you know? As if they just walked into Stamford Bridge and they were told, okay, you've won. Then I want to say Matt Dean for the good performance, and then Matt Riley for appointing the referees, because Matt Riley is the boss of the referees. Which sounds, I think, for me a little disrespectful. Yeah. You need to give opponents respect. If they're beating you up, it doesn't matter the circumstances. Go and say, this guy played well, because it's one thing being given an opportunity to beat a team. It's another technique. Exactly. And that Chelsea team, playing against West Brom, they could have beaten them. They got a very, actually Canada never existed. Ramirez going down. And then it was given. Now Mourinho went and made those statements, and he's been charged in proper conduct. Of course, the FA realizes they are putting, I think it's putting the names of the referees, or bringing actually even the game into disrepute. I think questioning the capabilities of the referees. For Rui Faria, his assistant manager to Jose Mourinho, for him wanted to fight. He's been given 3 charges of misconduct, and I think also abusive language to the fourth official. So that one I'm very sure he will be very big time in trouble. Ramirez hit up an elbow on Sebastian Larsson. The referee didn't see it. But the FA introduced new rules. There is what they call retrospective punishment. If the referee does not see what happened, there's a committee that sits. If they find it fit that actually this, if the referee had would have been a red card, then you'll be punished the same manner. If they look at the video. Ramirez hit the guy with an elbow actually was almost a punch. And I have a feeling, big feeling, this season could be over because they have until 6 p.m. today, which is about, +2 is about 8 p.m. in Ghana time, to reply or to actually defend themselves. So that means Ramirez could be actually suspended for 3 games. This season could be over because there are 3 games left. Referee, I'm sure, I will be fined some good money and also probably chest off the bench. Jose Mourinho had already been won, only fine. I have a feeling it could be off the
going to be a big punishment this time. Yeah. Well, last night I caught the game, and you know, like you had predicted, it was not a defensive game.
Absolutely.
That was a brilliant game.
Absolutely.
Both were out to attack. What caught your attention?
Absolutely, and I think first of all, what caught my attention, there was a huge difference between the game on Tuesday. It seemed like the game on Tuesday was a championship game, and then you are seeing a game in the Champions League. That's what they call the real Champions League. Right. That's what they call a game of real giants. Right. A game of people who have one has won 5 titles in the Champions League, the other has won 9 times, and the other is chasing 10. But what a performance. No, I mean, you have to give credit to Madrid. Their defensive display, fantastic. Yeah. But the offense still was working for both teams. I think they were all over each other. Madrid, what they did, they sat back and allowed Bayern to have the ball whatever time they wanted, for as long as it was not in areas that were going to hurt them. Yeah. and they were ready to count them on the counter. That Madrid team is tough to stop on the counter. If you have Karim Benzema coming at you, Cristiano Ronaldo, Angel Di Maria, Gareth Bale actually started on the bench, Isco started in his place. He was a little disappointed.
Yeah, that's not Gareth Bale would have come earlier because at this time it surprised me he was a bit faster on the ball.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you something. When you have flu, you come in at morning at NTV and work comfortably, but you cannot give your boss an extra. Are you kidding me? You've got flu.
Morning at NTV.
In Europe, having flu is a serious problem. Gareth Bale was suffering from flu, that's why I started in the bench. So they needed to give him, and I was actually surprised that actually Madrid were brave enough to look up Ronaldo. He'd been injured, so he could not play the whole 90 minutes. So it was second, but credit to them, very good defensively. And they took their chance once they got it. Actually, Bayern were the better side in terms of possessing the ball and being all over Madrid.
At one point, Bayern had, I think, about 600 passes and they had 90% accuracy.
But we all know at the end of the day, what is the question? Who won?
Goal, yeah.
And Madrid should have scored 3 goals for me. Clear-cut chance created for Ronaldo.
When he was offside?
Yeah. No, he wasn't actually offside. Blaise Diofa. Benzema also himself. No, Angel Di Maria, actually keeper to beat. No, it was a little tight angle. So I think they should have scored 3 goals on the night. Go to Allianz Arena and realize that we have a 3-0 lead. There's nothing to do. But I'll tell you, a 1-0 lead, of course, a goal scored by Karim Benzema. I'm telling you, that's going to be a tough result over time, in my view, for Bayern Munich. Because a 2-1 win for Bayern takes Madrid through. Can Bayern score 3 without Madrid scoring a goal? I highly doubt. I think Madrid are good for a goal, even 2, because on their counter they will be hard. Bayern have got to use their position more effectively. They've got to be better in the final third.
Right. Yeah. What do you then, think about the return leg? Because yes, Bayern were. I think the game was both possessed the ball.
Yeah.
They used the ball as and when they had it.
Yeah.
It's only barring the chance.
Exactly. I mean, and they didn't create so many. That's what I'm saying. I think Pepe had a fantastic game. Much as went off injured. Sergio Ramos too. Xabi Alonso and Luka Modric. Was brilliant. Was brilliant. Yeah. Very good defensively. Of course, was a very intelligent footballer. Plays for the defense well, did a great job. Sergio Ramos, and even Cavalier actually was brilliant. Consoir managed to keep Ian Robben out. For me, this is going to be clear. Frank Ribery for Bayern Munich has got to come back and play football in the season. He's been awful this season. Apart from the first games, I think, of this season, since he got injured, he's been awful. Even against United, was almost non-existent. 2, Bayern have got to use the possession more effectively.
Right.
For me, it doesn't make up or doesn't make any sense for you to have lots of the ball without getting in the 18 area of the Madrid team.
Right.
They'll be comfortable keeping you there. For Madrid, I think they've got to defend the same way they did to stop Bayern, and they've got to play a counter-attacking football. They've got to convert the chances, the 3 chances they'll create in that game. They do that. I think for me, Madrid are in the final.
All right. Well, we'll be waiting for that game. What the stadium packed to the rafters.
Absolutely. It was blazing white.
I felt like I was in Europe, man. I felt like I was in Spain. Very brilliant game. Yeah. Now, let's move on to Europa, something that we have somehow always neglected. Yeah. The semi-final game, Benfica against Juventus. What's the prediction?
That's a tough game, that is. Benfica know how to play Europa football, and they've won European Cups before. They're such a huge team. Juventus have been off the European scene for quite some time. They really struggle. That's why in the Champions League, they go out at the group stages. Benfica is going to be a tough game. They start in Portugal before they go to Italy.
Yeah.
For me, this is really going to be a tough game for me. Hard to call, but I love to see, given what Benfica have been doing. I've watched a few Juventus games in the Europa. I think they're quite beatable to find a very decent side, a disciplined side, and a team offensively that can handle like Benfica. So it's going to be a tough one, but I think it's going to be very edgy, a little nervy, and very close. I'll have to think Benfica might go past this one.
All right. And Sevilla against that.
Spanish affairs, this one?
Yeah.
They both have to fight hard actually to get into the finals. Valencia were beaten by Basel away, 3-0. They had to score 5 at home to qualify, which they did really in some style. Sevilla did the same. They had to overtime their first leg loss. I think they won 4-1 on the night. Both teams have not looked that good in the Spanish La Liga. Sevilla most likely to go back to the Europa. Valencia are outside the Europa place, I think about 7 points.
Wow.
behind the seventh place starting Villarreal. They've got to work hard actually to go back to Europe. I think this is a realistic chance to probably have something this season.
Yeah.
How does this end? Going to be a tough one, but I'll go with Valencia to shock us and probably be in the finals, given how awful they've been this season.
And we've beat Valencia a lot in the Champions.
Yeah, I know. You remember those years under Hector Cooper?
Yeah,
really. Very regular fixer. But they've struggled over the times. I mean, financial problems. They've lost so many players. One matters of this world. Well, with them, Jesus Navas. No, Jesus Navas actually was at Sevilla. But Valencia have lost a couple of players. Alvaro Negredo. I mean, just like I said, one matter a couple of seasons back. So they've really gone through hard times the last couple of years. And that's due to their financial position right now. So they've got to sort that.
All right, heading over to your Facebook comments, Malele Collins says, we love you, NTV. But as ardent sports fans, we kindly request that you let some live action soccer to us, and if possible, the prestigious FIFA World Cup. Wow. Okay, boss I think has had.
I mean, that message is not for us.
Brian, how hard is it to get these, permits? And we've seen a lot of, even in Europe, even just the FA, the Barclays Premier League, literally, TV stations are fighting over who has the right, who buys the right. It's expensive to get the right.
Yeah. Have you heard of football clubs complaining that it's absurd that TV makes the schedule for them? I'm sure you've heard something like that. The TVs dictate actually
who plays,
when you play. Not who plays who, but when you play. That's why Chelsea game was moved to Saturday, Sunderland game. Arsenal's game, playing hard. Of course, one of the reasons was Chelsea in the Champions League, but they asked and they were given. Let me tell you something. Sky, for example, pays the Premier League I think the Premier League gets about $3 billion from £3 billion from Sky. For the rights of the Premier League, I think. I think it's about $3 billion or $2 billion, but I think it's $3 billion for them to show. I think to hear that figure, $3 billion. They own the rights. I mean, people have been fighting for in China now. I think they also got some other guys who are going to be showing the Premier League. They're paying about, I think, $700-something million. Same is, I think, certain Fox in the US and some other, because Fox, I think, and the Sky must be related. Rupert Murdoch's, I think, one of media houses. So it's really tough, even to get just one game over the weekend. And there's, of course, NTV one time was showing the Premier League. I think a game every weekend. It must have been one of those late games.
It's expensive to get.
Really expensive. We talk more than, I think, 300 million shillings. If you're going to be shown.
Again,
No, like over the
whole season.
Oh yeah, over the season. So it's a lot of money. Even the World Cup, same thing. FIFA to give you rights, tough call. No, the World Cup and the FA Cups are a little easier, but the Premier League really tough. But this is NTV we're talking about. Are you kidding me?
So, if we can do the sports segment live, at the Emirates.
In space.
Very bad for me. Okay, and before we head out, here is your African proverb. And remember, you can catch Omumuli later with Lumansi and Alan. Don't go away. All right, and this morning, this thing is still loading.
Unfortunately, I didn't carry my Chichiga proverb, so I mean, was it proverbs? African proverb. I didn't carry my Chichiga proverb, so you have to wait for the phone.
All right, this internet is still loading, but in case you have an African proverb, please let us know, share it with us, and we can profile it on this show. And this morning, the African proverb comes in from Fak Mbazira, and it says, "Cooperation pulled the goat from the hyena." Cooperation pulled the goat from the hyena. It's from Malawi.
Cooperation pulled the goat from the hyena.
Who was cooperating? The goats?
Maybe the goats...
the goats were together.
The goats are more cooperative and they realize the hyena is...
When you work together, you can defeat anything.
Yeah, I mean, probably 1 is better than 2, or rather 2 is better than 1.
Two.
Divided, we fall. United, we stand.
Though it has been hard for United.
They have not
stood.
This year it has been United, we fall.
Keba Nelson says, meaning when you work together, you can do the impossible. To see Catherine, it's a poverty of ambition when you think of the goods you can buy instead of the goods you can give. Fred Wakida, think positively about your future. Don't relax when entangled with problems, because at one time you will be free.
Yeah, big problem in Africa. Yeah, big problem in Africa. We've got to learn how to work together and also stop. Once someone is better than you, probably you harming them does not doing any good.
Yeah.
You harming someone who is better than you does not mean you're going to become them.
Right.
So it's better actually you ask them how they got where they are.
And you try
and try and work together.
Right. This morning, if you're having wrangles at the office, it's time to go and fix it. If you're having wrangles with your girlfriend,
go talk to your neighbor.
Yes.
Go talk to your neighbor, go talk to your enemy. Tell him, hey dude, we've got to be friends. Like, we work here.
The neighbors, but it's hard.
Okay, because these days asking for salt, especially you watch TV, my friend. There's some such a TV now.
What do you take muskari mumeri and you know,
yeah, I know.
Things go on. But go and fix whatever problems you have. Work together, because, like my friend says, harmonious living is the way to go. Until tomorrow, the Bryans are out. Mabel, Joel, and Simon will all be ready for you. It's going to be a Friday. We have an awesome show. Make sure you do not miss. We'll be hosting some guys who have made use of social media, but also we'll be looking at another creative way to make news more appealing. I'm so excited about tomorrow's show. Well, Morning at NTV still continues with the Soul Moment. Bye-bye.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
NTV, turning on your world.
What's that?
That document.
Oh, that. Just some business.
I came to apologize. I have no right to interfere in your lives.
I've eliminated the only evidence that links me to Ivan Chinawa's death.
But you didn't have to kill another person.
It's not like I've got anything to hide, Nene. Just go ahead.
Victoria, how is it like to work for Miles Vilagazi?
Blood seemed to matter not.
Blood?
Yeah, blood.
I'm responsible for your father's death.
Running out of airtime can happen to anyone. The next time you recharge, simply dial *161# to get going again.
On the next episode of La Patrona.
Have you ever heard that words are deadlier than bullets are?
No, and I don't get it. What are you trying to say?
The microphone is yours, Mr. Mayor. I invite you to broadcast to all the people of San Pedro del Oro everything you just said.
If you only knew what I was going through now. Everything's falling apart around me right now. But I'm still here. Still standing on my feet. For my daughter and for Valentina. Of course you understand perfectly. When my daughter gets better, and Valentina's no longer legally a minor, I'm getting out of this damn town.
La Patrona.
At Orange, we know that running out of airtime can happen to anyone. That's why we bring you Wetase. Simply dial *161# to get going again. Convenience changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.